Yesterday, the cabinet has cleared the proposal for One Nation, One Elections, and this was based on the report submitted by high-level committee headed by former President Ram Nath Kovind. And the committee has submitted the report to the President Murmu, and the committee recommended that there needs to be 18 amendments to the Constitution. Article 368, we have two types of amendments. The first one deals with Parliament's power to amend the Constitution, and here the ratification by states is not required. For the House of the People, which is Lok Sabha, for state legislature, which is the Assembly, as well as for the local bodies, which are the panchayats and municipalities, we need to have simultaneous elections. Article 327 talks about the power of Parliament to make laws with regard to conduct of elections. Hello everyone, welcome to Amigos IAS. I am Adnan. Yesterday, the cabinet has cleared the proposal for One Nation, One Elections, and this was based on the report submitted by high-level committee headed by former President Ram Nath Kovind on the feasibility of conducting simultaneous elections in India. So as we know, in the March this year, the high-level committee has submitted its proposal. That means this committee was established to understand whether India can go for One Nation, One Elections, which is also called simultaneous poll. So what is the feasibility of that? What kind of amendments are required to the Constitution? All these aspects were on the agenda of this particular committee, and the committee has okayed the proposal. They have found out that yes, it is very much possible to conduct simultaneous elections in India, and the committee has submitted the report to the President Murmu. And the committee recommended that there needs to be 18 amendments to the Constitution, and those amendments are of two types. As we know, in Article 368, we have two types of amendments. The first one deals with Parliament's power to amend the Constitution, and here the ratification by states is not required. Whereas when we talk about second type of amendment, here the ratification by half the states of India is required. So let's try to understand what are the amendments proposed and how can we have this simultaneous elections in India. Starting with the aspects, the first bill, there has to be two bills here. The first bill will deal with starting this process of One Nation, One Election, where Parliament alone can do it without requiring the approval of the states. Then you may ask, where do we require states' approval? That means when we discuss any matter which related to the list number 2, which is state list, there the state's consent is required. For example, this idea of One Nation, One Election proposes that for the House of the People, which is Lok Sabha, for state legislature, which is the Assembly, as well as for the local bodies, which are the panchayats and municipalities, we need to have simultaneous elections. The only difference here is that for Lok Sabha and the Assemblies, we have general election at the same time, and after you have the elections for this, within 100 days, we should also have elections for panchayats and municipalities all over India. So let's try to see what are the amendments proposed to start this process. Starting with the first article, which is 82 capital A, which means 82 capital A will kickstart the process to start these simultaneous elections. And then the next amendment comes, 82 capital A subclause 1. So it says, on the date of the first sitting of the House of the People after the general election, the President will issue notification saying that first day of the sitting of the House will be called as the appointed date. Now, what is the meaning of the word appointed date? Which means that date will be counted, and from that date onwards till the next 5 years, we have to make sure the governments will be there. If they collapse also, that appointed date becomes very important. I'll come back to that point, like how this appointed date actually helps us to fix a framework for having same elections, okay, for Lok Sabha and Assemblies. So appointed date, you don't forget. I'll come back to this point in a short while. And then 82 capital A subclause 2 says, the all legislative assemblies which are constituted in any election after the appointed date shall come to an end on the expiry of the full term of House of People. Let's take an example. Let's think next time in 2029, if we have this simultaneous elections, and let's say June 1st is fixed as the date, as appointed date. After June 1st, 2029, let's say any other government which has, let's say assembly elections happen in 2030 for any state. So even if that state has come 1 year after the Lok Sabha, but their term will expire in 4 years next. Why? Because the appointed date is the benchmark here. The appointed date, let's say for example, is June 1, 2029. That means after 5 years on June 1, 2034, the term of the House will end. And if any assembly also has come on, let's say 2030 or 31, because the process in India is like this, so their term will not be 5 years, but they will be expiring after the 5 years from the appointed date. So I hope you understood the point here. So that is the meaning of the word appointed date. Then what is the next amendment here? 82 capital A subclause 3. It says that the Election Commission of India will conduct these simultaneous elections. What if any legislative assembly elections cannot be conducted? So some issues are there, like Manipur issue is going on. Sometimes Jammu Kashmir issue is going on. So in that time, what will happen? You can defer the assembly elections for some more time. So even if you are synchronizing for 5 years, for both the Assembly and Lok Sabha. But if any state elections are not happening and you have delayed for, let's say 6 months or 1 year, even if that happens, elections happen after 1 year, but their term will not be 5 years, only 4 years, for example. Because that means what? No matter what happens, we need to stay to that 5-year cycle. That is the idea of having elections at the same time. Okay, next amendment here. 82 capital A subclause 4. It says that yes, the elections to the assembly can be conducted at a later date. Yes, 82 capital A subclause 5 says the full term of the assembly shall end on the same time as the full term of the House of the People will end. So appointed date is the benchmark here, guys. After that, if any elections are not happening or whatever happens, they will not stay for 5 years, because again what happens? Lok Sabha 5 years and other states coming in the middle, their 5 years if we add, we cannot have elections at the same time. And then next one is what? Article 327 talks about the power of Parliament to make laws with regard to conduct of elections. That article also has to be amended, because now we have to allow the Election Commission of India, okay, to have simultaneous elections, and they have to prepare the electoral rolls, delimitation of constituencies, whatever it is there. So all these powers will be given to the Election Commission of India. So some amendments have to be done in Article 327 as well to include simultaneous elections. And next point here, what happens if Lok Sabha or Assembly both dissolve before the full term ends? So here, guys, as I gave the example already, so once you have started from the appointed date, that remaining term is called as 5 years, called as full term. Full term is 5 years. In between, after 3 years, if the government, central government or state government, guys, both Lok Sabha or Assembly, if they collapse, because we have defections, we have coalition governments, anything can happen, of course. So if that happens, then the remaining term is there, right? For example, after 3 years, the government collapsed. Then we have 2 more years. That 2 more years are called as unexpired term. And if any elections happen after that, the new house will be there not for 5 years, for the unexpired term they will be there. So I hope you latch on to this idea, guys. Appointed date 5 years, in between any government falls, the remaining term what is there is called unexpired term, and after that if elections happen, the next government will serve for the unexpired term but not for full 5 years. This is what we know in the case of the panchayat and municipality elections. If they are dissolved prematurely, the next panchayat municipality will not serve again next 5 years. They will serve only the remainder of the term. That is the same logic applied to this simultaneous elections here, guys. So for those, the proposed amendments are 83 clause 3 and 172 clause 3, because these deal with the terms of the house, guys. Then 83 clause 4, 172 clause 4 says the new governments will serve only for the unexpired term. So all these are the important amendments. And the biggest thing is, there is no need for the states to ratify this. Only Parliament alone can start this process. Fine. Then what about Union Territories? So for that, we already have the Government of Union Territories Act 1963 and Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991 is there. Then we also have Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019. So these also have to be amended, because we need to have simultaneous elections for union territories like Puducherry is there, Delhi is there, Jammu Kashmir is there. For them also we need to synchronize. Then what about the other aspect, which means where states also have to give permission? That is because we also have to conduct panchayat municipality elections. So that is, state government will have those things. So Article 243K, Article 243ZA, panchayats and municipalities election commission of the state will have them. But now what happens here? Overall, we need to have changes in the electoral rolls also, which means we need to have one single electoral roll. What we used to have, 325 article talks about what? It talks about eligibility of people in the electoral rolls. We cannot discriminate people on the grounds of religion, race, caste or sex. That means here for the Assembly as well as the Lok Sabha, we have electoral rolls. Now what we want to do? We want to have one single electoral roll for Assembly, People's House, which is Lok Sabha, panchayats and municipalities. For that also we need to make some amendment to the constitution, and here we need to add article 324 capital A, so as to allow the election commission to get these powers. So they have to consult the state election commission and prepare the single electoral rolls. So these are the very important amendments which are proposed, where states consent also is required. Okay, but the problem is that what are the issues involved here? Let's try to understand. First thing is, on paper at force it says that we can do amendments to the constitution and we can bring one nation, one election or simultaneous elections in India. But critics are saying, of course, it is true that it is a blow to federalism, because when the government says that they want to reduce the expenditure on the polls, and frequent elections also will stop the government from taking any meaningful development activities, and because of model code of conduct prevailing everywhere, it takes it, there are some restrictions on the government that they cannot bring long-term policies because of the poll code is there. So those all points are of course what we write in the answer when we support the argument for simultaneous elections. But when you criticize that aspect, what we have to include is that on paper it looks fine, but it may affect the regional issues, because elections are fought on national issues when it comes to the Lok Sabha elections. So if you subsume all other elections of the states along with the Lok Sabha elections, then it may create a situation where the regional issues will not be held so important and people may vote national parties more. So states may lose that kind of, okay, states are not happy with this. Many of the states have voiced their concerns regarding federal aspects here. And second thing is also that how do we have the administrative or official machinery which is capable of conducting elections for entire India at the same time. Already we are seeing that the Maharashtra elections have been deferred. Jammu Kashmir elections were deferred for a long time. And let's see the Manipur issue right now. So do we have that kind of wherewithal to have elections for the entire India at the same time? Of course, it's not on the same day, it will happen in phases wise, but how long will it take? Those administrative nitty-gritties are yet to be ironed out. So there has to be some consultation with the respective state governments on how we can bring this. In the past, it was possible because Congress party was ruling India from 1952 general elections, first election, second and third and fourth elections. In 1967, India had fourth election. Until then, Congress party was ruling India both in center and states, except 1 or 2 states. In 67, Congress party has lost 8 states, and in the 9th state, it came by support of some other political party. Then onwards, this cycle has been changed because of imposition of president rule by the then prime ministers. So this cycle of 5 years have changed. So the situation of India at that time was different, and today it is quite different. Today we have several political parties, regional issues are there, and defection politics are there. So instability is there. So will these elections work out in India or not? So time will tell the answer. So let us hope that the government will convene a parliamentary standing committee on this or a joint parliamentary committee to have effective consultation with various members of the house, various governments of the states, and then they bring out this kind of long-standing reform. So I hope you understood this topic. If you have any questions, please post in the comments below. I'll see you with some other topics some other day. Keep watching Amigos IAS. Thank you.